Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Now we're in. Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm great, and good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to go into the pit with me here for Alamo True Metal
No
here in
problem,
San
man. My
Antonio.
pleasure.
Yes, sir. I want to let everybody know that we have the pleasure of speaking with Immolation drummer Steve Shalaty. Of course, the band is about to release their 11th album, Acts of God, via Nuclear Blast Records on Friday, February 18th. And then you guys are coming here down the road to Austin, Texas on Saturday, February 26th at Come and Take It Live in Austin with Imperial Triumphant and Mortiferum. We're going to get into all of that, but just wanted to thank you again for going into the pit with me here. I'm assuming you're somewhere in New York today in the snowstorm area, or not? Where are you at today?
No, sir. I'm in the northeastern Ohio.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Very
Yeah, about
good.
40 minutes east of Cleveland, right on the lake shore.
That's right. That's where you live. I know it's a New York band, but you live there. Of course. That's right. Okay.
Yes.
So very
But
good.
we're buried in snow here as well.
I know the feeling. I'm originally from Chicago, so grew up in all that
Oh,
stuff. So
shit. Yeah, no doubt.
Well, yeah. So again, you guys are releasing Acts of God. I know you've released a couple of videos for The Age of No Light and Apostle. But just generally speaking, to start out, Steve, of course, you've been in the band since 2003. You've played on your share of records with Immolation. Of course, Atonement in 2017, 5 years ago, was the last record. Just in a general sense, can you tell me how Acts of God is different, either in the making of or the sounding of, than some of the previous records?
Actually, quite a few ways. I think stylistically, the writing has jumped up another notch from Atonement. The arrangements, stuff like that. We had a lot of time with this one, obviously. Man, 5 years, I didn't even realize it's been 5 years, but you know, with the pandemic and all that, you know, we had a lot of time to work on this, and Bob had started writing it a long time ago, so we actually had like 4 tunes before we did our last bit of touring for Atonement, you know. So I've had a long time to work on these songs, which is usually not the case at all. It's usually a pretty quick process. Once it begins, it's like and we're in the studio, you know what I mean? So this time I got to spend a lot of time with the songs and really develop the drum beats the way I wanted them to be. And also another weird thing with this one that set it apart and in such a good way, and I was looking forward to seeing how this came out, and I really enjoyed it, was we had Alex was completely 100% involved in this, where previous albums have just been me, Bob, and Ross, pretty much, you know what I mean? Like Bill never came up to the studio. Bill never wanted to even hear any of the new songs until the album was done. I don't know if you can believe that or not, but it's true 100%. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, just to bring in another guitar player to play his stuff over that, you know, or play his tracks, was way different, and I knew it was going to lend like a different feel to this album. But then also he did leads too, so Alex shared leads with Bob, which, as far as I know, it hasn't been done for decades. So that was awesome too. So you know, when they were done with the leads and stuff, I get to listen to and through and try to guess who was who, you know what I mean? Like, who's doing this lead, you know, because they go back and forth and stuff like that. So so that lent a real unique feel to this album too. So I don't know, I guess you can imagine, or if you're a guitar player and you've recorded before, you know, or you can kind of guess that you know, Bob playing his guitar part and then Bob playing his guitar part again as the rhythm guitar or second guitar is going to be a little more locked in, you know what I'm saying? You know, a second guitar player playing the same riff but with his own style and his own techniques and stuff like that, things that are, you know, unique to him and his timing and all that, those natural tendencies are going to create a different sound, you know what I mean? It's not going to be two late tracks laid on top of each other, or even delayed a little bit, you know, and gives you a richer feel and sound, man. And it came out great on this, man. I was so happy about that. So yeah, this is definitely a unique album for Immolation in the catalog.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, the 2 videos, The Age of No Light and Apostle is the finale on the 15-song album. What were you guys trying to achieve visually with either or both of the videos?
The Apostle video, we were trying to be very, very abstract with it. We didn't want to focus really on anybody's faces or anything like that, or any. We just wanted it to kind of flow seamlessly from like the visuals that we were throwing in, and just this abstract, very shadowy look to things. So you'll see Alex playing, and maybe his face is way out of focus, but his hands are maybe in for a second, you know what I mean? But the lights like kind of obscuring part of him, you know what I mean? And it's just like,
Yes.
We made it real patchwork like that, so that just to get like a real shadowy, I don't know if mysterious is a good way, but you know where I'm going with it. You know what I mean? That kind of effect where it wasn't just like, here's Ross, here's Alex. And it came out really well, man. We did that here in Painesville, and it came out good, man. I was really surprised. We're very DIY, and Bob, we rely heavily on Bob's expertise in videography and lighting and stuff like that, because that he's got a lot of experience in that, as far as his work outside the band and stuff like that. So like I said, we rely on that a lot, but we just kind of came in and tried to do some different stuff, and get the lighting right, and then we've shot enough videos to know how the rest works. You know what I mean? You got to get a million different angles and a million different takes with a million different variations as you can, so that you have a ton of stock footage to deal with. You know what I mean? Because videos these days are moving fast. It's got to be, people don't have patience or attention span for anything that's just like sitting there on you. You know what I mean? A lot of the time anyway. So yeah, that's where we were, at least what Bob was thinking and what we had talked about before we shot it. You know what I mean? So we were able to capture a lot of that pretty well, and I was pretty happy. Yeah, it came out great. And the fact that it's a strong song helps too. You know what I mean? The response to that video was just like, man, we were all blown away. Couldn't believe it, ecstatic.
I also dig Noose of Thorns and Flooded. Are there any particular stories or significance behind those tracks?
Oh, okay. So you got the whole promo then.
Yeah, I've been listening to it a couple times. Yeah, so far.
Cool. Right on. Okay, so Noose of Thorns. Noose of Thorns was the first song that I got, that any of us got from Bob, and that was the first one he wrote. And so that was, a few years ago, like a couple of years ago, and I was initially kind of sour on it because it's really melancholy and slow starting, you know what I mean? And the drums are like way out in the open for that intro part. And so I wasn't super hype about it, but it grew on me, and I had to really, and this is where having the time came in. I really had to like think about what's the best way to do the drums for that wide open part. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of heaviness going on with the riff at the beginning, so I needed the drums to be very bombastic and heavy sounding, you know what I mean, but not like too much. I didn't want to overplay it. So I learned a lot of lessons on this album, and that was one of them, right off the bat, that first song. So but yeah, I mean, that's it. So that one, out of all of them, obviously we've been working on the most. We even had a couple rehearsals where we played that before we went out and did some of the touring for Atonement. So it's been underdeveloped for a long time. Came out good. It's I like the way it's starts out, like I said, kind of melancholy or whatever, and then it's just like it hits and it burns, you know what I mean, for a good long time, and then it's back to that melancholy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's a good effect. It's just like that perfect good tune. Yeah, I think we're gonna be playing that one live too, so interested to see how that one goes. Yeah. And then Blooded was number 3. That was the third song he wrote. And the second song he wrote was Shed the Light, which is a real kind of weird one, super quirky with the drums, you know what I mean? So when I got Blooded, I was like, oh, here we go. This one's right off, it's just kind of like a blaster right off the bat, you know what I mean? A traditional grinding death metal song, you know what I mean? So I was very relieved to get that one. And that one, when we did those first rehearsals, that was the one I enjoyed playing the most. You know what I mean? That's just it's right up my alley. And also was our choice for the first one to debut before anything, when we played in Vegas at Psycho Las Vegas a few months back, and then in Philly at the Decibel Metal and Beer Fest. We played Blooded both those times live, you know, just as like a little sneak peek, you know what I mean, at what was coming. And they went over great, dude. It was so much fun. Yeah, it's a good, fun song.
Yeah, and Steve, I've also watched the making of clips you and the rest of the band have done so far. And I know in those you talked a lot about the you know, the working with Paul Orfino as producer. And I know you've done a few albums with him, I believe. But it also kind of intrigues me, borderline fascinates me, that he's also known for working with classic bands like Blue Oyster Cult and Golden Earring. So it's just kind of, you talk about that mix where even though you have worked with him in the past, how does a guy who is known for classic rock bands get the most out of your sound in the death metal genre?
I don't know. He was getting great drum sounds on Immolation's albums before I joined. So the first couple projects we did together was like, we were honing it. You know what I mean? I thought like Shadows, which like I've done every album. I've never done an Immolation album that hasn't been with Paul. So Shadows, the drum set was sounding really good, but the drum set was outdated. You know what I mean? Like I thought he got a really good sound out of that drum kit, but I realized after that album that I needed a new drum kit, you know? So, and I had just joined them, you know what I mean? So I was just starting to do it on a professional level or whatever. So after that, I got a new drum set. And I think he dialed in right away to the new drum kit. We had a friend of his come in and help me dial it in tuning wise, just right that first time. Because this new drum set I got had huge toms on it. And it's a lot to handle. And, you know, I didn't have a ton of studio experience. So I wanted to make sure that we got the most out of it. So, you know, we had a guy come in and help me get things tuned for that album. And yeah, I thought the drums sounded great on that. And that was the beginning of it. Like he really locked in with it. And I don't know. He's a magical guy, man. He's got a lot of experience. Worked with Kiss and the Jarzombecs and stuff. He's just, you know, he knows what he's doing, man. He's a good guy.
Well, of course, being here in San Antonio, good friends with Bobby and Ron Jarzombec here. Awesome. Known him for many years and always see him out at shows around town and stuff. So it's very cool. I had no idea that Paul's worked with him closely or worked with them. So that's good to know too. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a general question, Steve, about the death metal genre. See if this is a fair assessment or not. Something that intrigues me about death metal is that you could have, it's either hit or miss with fans. You either have the ones that like various parts of metal, like classic or hair bands or thrash bands, who say, death metal's not quite my cup of tea. A lot of it is the vocals. I need to, you know, I don't want to have to read a lyric sheet, or I just can't get into it. And you have those sorts of bands or fans. And then you have the other guys who like bands like Immolation and Cannibal Corpse and that sort of thing, who are just so dedicated and hardcore to those. There's no in between. I'm sure you've dealt with that throughout. For the fans of the former type who may not get into death metal, what would you say to them when they say, oh, death metal has no melody, and why should they check out Acts of God and some of your other stuff?
Well, I agree that some death metal is more rhythmic than it is melodic, or it's a very simple elemental melody that you're dealing with. But Immolation is, and I think has always been, an exception to that rule, and they have been a very melodic death metal band ever since the beginning. So if you're looking for like a somber melodic and like that miserable, you know, that if you're looking for that feeling, then you can get that from Immolation. And I think that Immolation, the entire collection, when you listen to it, creates a unique atmosphere and a unique ambiance and a unique feeling, like a mood, okay, for lack of a more detailed term, a mood that, you know, you don't really get from some death metal bands. You know what I mean? You're like your run of the mill death metal band is chunka chunka and flying drums and stuff like that. And people will easily miss the melody and something like that, or miss the, you know, a mood, or it doesn't create like a unique mood. But Immolation has always been one that creates a very unique atmosphere ever since the beginning. Like I said, before I joined the band, was listening to them, you know what I mean? We loved them because of that, you know. Dawn of Possession, you listen to that album and you just feel like you're in this cavernous, hellish landscape, you know what I mean? It's just like, it takes you there, you know, that the sound and the mood and everything that it creates. So that's what I would say. Check it out, you know what I mean? The vocals are ferocious. So yeah, I mean, that's, if you're used to clean singing or something that's not so aggressive, it may freak you out at first. And hey, listen, the first time I heard Suffocation's Effigy of the Forgotten, I took the tape out of the player, and I threw it across the room. I was like, that's crap, dude. Those vocals are ridiculous. But dude, it was less than a week later, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. You know what I mean? Because I you know, my friends were pushing on me, you know, like, dude, listen to the riff, listen to that. And then, you know, it takes a minute to accustom yourself to that, you know, to acclimate yourself to that. And then you see how it works and why it works. And, you know, it doesn't matter that you can't understand what the hell Frank's saying. It's the percussive, rhythmic approach that he's taking with it that accentuates the music so well. You know what I mean? That's what makes it work and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely, you gotta step in a little bit and weather that the vocal assault. But the music of Immolation, I think, could appeal to people that are into different kinds of metal that are not necessarily into death metal. You know what I mean? There's so much stuff, especially on this new album. Yeah. When I heard it, I'm like, that's really cool and it sounds cool, but is that death metal? Like, does that really even, you know what I mean? Some of the stuff is so kind of weird that I was like, does that even count as death metal according to my personal definition of death metal? You know what I mean? But it works out, man.
Well said. I like that a lot. And I saw it, Steve, I also saw your Spotify playlist, and I like the fact, of course, you've got variety on there. You've got the death metal, you've got Slayer, you've also got Steely Dan and Tom Petty. So it was clear to me what you like to listen to when you need to mellow out.
Yeah, dinner music.
Yeah. So is there anything that maybe wasn't on there that you think fans watching this might be surprised that you listen to on a regular basis, like any one or two artists, whether they're current or classic, anything that you might think people out there would go, wow, he listens to that? That's pretty cool.
I listen to every now and again, and usually again, it's either enjoying dinner or preparing dinner time. But I listen to the Fania All Stars, which is super salsa from back when it's really started to bubble in New York and stuff like that. That style of music, and it's amazing stuff. And I got to credit my girlfriend. She's Colombian. She got me into it. But yeah, I love that stuff, and we listen to it a lot. It's good. It's a good as any instrumentalist, but especially as a percussionist, it's super inspiring to listen to that and then carry that with you to the practice spot the next time you go to play. You know what I mean? And to experiment with that. And she's good for that too. We play a lot of off the wall stuff and a lot of Latin stuff because she plays drums too. So you know, we have two kits together in one room at the practice spot, and you know, we go to town. It's really cool. So yeah, that's awesome. One thing that wasn't on my playlist that I think people would be definitely surprised to find out that I listen to Fania All Stars. But
that's
I have
awesome.
Tremendous respect for that, and I really get into it. It's a great
cool.
Yeah.
And Steve, I wanted to ask you about like the thrashing styles between regular thrash bands like Slayer and the style of thrash that can be incorporated by you and other death metal bands. For instance, Slayer, you can listen to them for 3 decades and they pretty much have the same consistent thrash beat, whether it's Dave Lombardo doing classic stuff like Praise of Death from Hell Awaits, or Paul Bostaff in the later materials, pretty much the same thrash beat. With my assessment of death metal and you is that you can incorporate that style as well, but then you can also step it up another level, that style of thrash where you kind of grip the sticks in the middle with your fingertips and you just go which is different than just going.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, and in fact, to me, there should be like a specific name. Maybe there is for that style where you go. To me, it was like the equivalent of a high school marching band drummer going or doing the Battle Hymn of the Republic that way, but of course multiplied by 10 when it comes to death metal. So can you talk about incorporating both of those styles of thrash, for lack of a better term, and how do you prefer one or the other? You know, does it just a matter of what the song calls for, that sort of thing?
Well, yeah, thrash kind of had more of a, I don't know, I guess, and especially when you're talking like Slayer and that style of thrash had more of a box that you kind of played in, you know what I mean, for a drummer. And you know, I was a huge thrash metal fan. That's really what got me into metal way before, you know, I was introduced to any sort of death metal or knew that it existed. So to me, what drew me to thrash at the time was, you know, it was very extreme, it was very fast, you know what I mean, it's very aggressive, and the heaviness and rawness of it. So it was a natural progression to go into death metal, and you carried a lot of that technique set into death metal, you know what I mean? So going from a band like Slayer to a band like Morbid Angel or Terrorizer or something wasn't a huge jump technique wise as far as drumming went. But what did it for me was the fact that it seemed like, listening to all the godfathers of death metal, like there wasn't really a rule set so much, and these guys were doing whatever the hell, making stuff up even, you know what I mean, and just doing it. And it all seemed very exciting and very barbaric to me at first, and then certain albums came out, namely Gorguts Erosion of Sanity in 1993, which was the year after I graduated high school and was ready to go to college for music. And I heard that and a couple other albums where the drumming was next level and definitely not barbaric and definitely experimental and no rules. And so that's where I wanted to go. And I came from a heavy marching band background. I came from a heavy jazz background. Like when I first started playing drums, it was, my instruction was a lot of jazz. And those albums like Erosion of Sanity green lighted that for me, that was going to be okay, and that would be, you know, that would allow death metal to become a legitimate style of drumming, because back then nobody cared about death metal. Nobody was impressed by death metal except for death metal people, drumming wise, you know what I'm saying? People were like, that's just crap, he's just beating the drums. And a lot of it was kind of like that, you know what I mean? So I needed a band like that to prove to me that there was a way to play anything I really felt like, you know, in a death metal context, and it would be okay, and it would elevate the art, and you know, there was no ceiling for it, you know what I'm saying? I would be able to do, you know, whatever I wanted, express myself however I wanted. So I don't know if that quite answers your question, but
no, it does. It's
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Thank you.
Death metal takes those thrash techniques and takes it up a notch in most cases, you know what I mean? Black metal too. Black metal drumming is very thrash drumming, you know what I mean? So
yeah. And for the gearheads out there, I know we can't see your set, and that's perfectly fine, but can you talk about your setup, what you typically play, why you like that sort of brand of cymbals and drums, and how the setup works for you particularly?
Sure. Sure. The setup is constantly expanding, and I'm always adding things or changing things a little bit. My basic setup is a 7-piece kit with 3 rack toms and a floor tom, 2 kick drums and snare. I love that configuration of the 3 rack toms up top. It just seems to fit with the way I like to play my death metal. It's enough toms where you don't run out of things to hit, you know what I mean, and keep things interesting. And yeah, it's a nice way I have it set up. It's very tight. Like I said earlier, I went with some big drums this time around, and I'm playing a Mapex Orion kit from a few years back. But it sounds great, and I wanted a drum set that would help me capture more of the way Immolation sounded before I was in the band. Their stuff has always had these huge tom rolls, these big cavernous tom sounds, you know what I mean? And so I felt like I needed to upsize the toms a bit to help capture that in live situation, especially. So I went with big sizes. I got like a 12, 13, 14 rack and a 16 floor. I'm using a steel snare, a Mapex Black Panther snare that's with any other head than what I've got on it is pretty much out of control because it's steel and it's just like, whoa, it's got so much ring. But I actually use a Kevlar like marching snare head on it, and it tames it just right, just right. Like I usually don't even have to use any damping on it or anything like that because that head's so heavy duty. And for cymbals, I'm endorsed by Sabian, and I'm such a lucky man to be able to say that because that's my favorite cymbal company, has been for a long time. Obviously, before I was endorsed, I would give any cymbal a shot. When I went hunting for a cymbal, I knew what I needed, and I would try out whatever brand fit the bill. I would get it without a second thought. But it always seemed to be Sabians that I was ending up with. I think when I finally got the endorsement, I had one Zildjian out of the whole setup. And so that was great. That was a dream come true. And I've got like the exact cymbals that I want. And I love them all. I'm a little China crazy. I got a lot of Chinas on the kit. One in the direct center, one on my far left, one on my far right. And then I've got another small one on my far right. And it's kind of in a cluster with the biggest one I have is just like a 22-inch HH China. And then I've got the small one and I've got my right side hi-hats over there too. And it's kind of in like a little cluster, like I said. So I do a lot of patterns when I'm running around that and trying to rhythmically mock what the guitar is doing, you know what I mean? And at any given time, I spend a lot of time over that area. So I like that a lot. My baby China in the middle is a 14-inch Dave Weckl special that I've been using or a signature series that I've been using for probably 10, 12 years. I just keep getting the same one because it just sounds so awesome. Pedals, I'm endorsed by Axis Percussion. About 6 years ago, I broke the hell out of my right leg. I had an accident and broke my right leg in 3 places. So I was out of commission there for a minute. Yeah. And coming back was a real struggle to get my double bass back in time to not miss any shows and hold the band up, Yeah. Which I ended up missing one show with them. They got a fill-in drummer for a California Death Fest or something like that year. But other than that, I didn't miss a single show after cracking my leg up. So needless to say, I got back to it real quick, you know what I mean? And I needed a lighter pedal than what I was using before. I was using Iron Cobras, which is kind of a heavier pedal. So I switched over to the Axis pedal, which is light. It's got a lighter feel. It's got a more accurate triggering mechanism. And yeah, I've been with them now I've been playing those guys pedals since the leg break. And yeah, just got endorsed with them last year, which was awesome. Another dream come true to work with a company like that. It's a legendary death metal pedal company. Sticks, I use Vader Los Angeles. It's like a 5A. I went down in stick size. I used to use a 2B all the time, which is a really heavy stick. And then my friend like pretty much forced me to try his stick the one time, and it was way more comfortable and less abusive to my hands and my joints, and you know what I mean? So I switched over to that. That was probably about 6 years ago too, you know what I mean? So made some improvements there. And then I added a specific cymbal to the setup for this recording. I got a huge ice bell from Sabian that I've got mounted over by my ride cymbal, and I use it kind of like almost like a church bell gong type feel on a couple of the songs. Acts of God in the chorus especially is like bong, bong, bong. So that's something I wanted forever, and yeah, finally went for it this time and got that in there and managed to use it on a couple of the songs. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. So to wrap things up, Steve, can you just give me your quick, your favorite 2 or 3 drummers that you've had throughout your life, as far as influences, or just who you enjoy listening to and why that they are?
Okay, sure. So Alex Marquez, probably my greatest death metal drumming influence, from Solstice, from Resurrection, from Malevolent Creation. But I think I heard him first in Malevolent Creation. I love his speed. I love his dynamics in what he does with his hands. His fills are awesome. He shaped my playing style a lot. I think him and Craig Smolowski from the original Immolation lineup really influenced my style as far as my hands go. Also, Steve Ashim from Deicide was a huge influence for me because his speed and endurance. So I used to practice to, all the great death metal albums of that period, you know what I mean? And that was my practice. When I wasn't practicing with the band, I would just play through all those CDs and have, just back-to-back songs right through. And Legion was the one that I used to do for my feet. So my band before Immolation was double bass from the beginning of the song to the end of the song, every song. And I got that from practicing to Legion all the time. So yeah, those are three: Steve Ashing, Alex Marquez, and Craig Smolowski.
Awesome.
Three of the top. I mean, there's others obviously, but those guys for sure.
Well, Steve, I can't thank you enough for going into the pit with me here with Alamo True Metal on a Sunday afternoon. I'm going to let you get back to watching the AFC Championship game or whatever you were doing before we hooked up.
Thanks, man.
So,
yeah, I appreciate
thank you
it.
so
It was
much.
a good interview. That's fun. Good talking to you.
Appreciate it. And I want to remind everybody, go check out Acts of God coming out February 18th on Nuclear Blast Records. And I'm going to have to get with Kristen to be put on the media list because I would love to cover you guys February 26th at Come and Take It Live in Austin. Again,
For sure.
tickets are available on my website, just alamotruemetal.com. Click the concert listings page. You can buy tickets to that show to see Immolation live. I would love to see you play and just give you a fist bump, shake your hand, whatever, elbow bumps, whatever we're doing these days to thank you for the interview today.
Yeah, dude, don't hesitate. Definitely come on up. I'll introduce you to all the guys.
Awesome, Steve. Very much appreciated. Best of luck with the tour and the album. Anything else you want to say to the listeners out there?
It's been a long time, and I'm glad everybody is okay and they waited. And it's time to throw down. We're coming in, starting in February 18th, and we're hitting just about everywhere. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all again. I know it's been a long time. But let's throw down, man. It's gonna be a good one.
Awesome, Steve. Well, thanks again for Steve and Kristen and Nuclear Blast folks. It's Jay Nanda of Alamo True Metal reminding you, don't hang them out to dry. Hold them up high. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks,
Take
man.
care,
Thank you.
man. We'll see you later.
Have a good one.
Bye.